Good evening, everyone. Time for another silver update. This is a weekly chart of gold provided by netdania.com. You can click on the link below. This is actually gold quoted in euros. Now, the euro is really in the news lately. The euro dollar cross is nearing a key juncture. Euro weakening and the dollar strengthening, but I wanted to show you this gold chart in the euro just because it's a much better indicator of where the euro is going in terms of gold than looking at dollars. It's a much better indicator of where things are going. So I've drawn a series of pennants, and that's the formation that it's been rising in. The one that we have now, the current pennant right up here, is actually the largest of any of these formations. I guess that's to be expected as we expand our range higher. You can see some of these pennants are level, some of them rise, and this is actually the first one that we have that is a falling one on the top. So not really sure what that portends, whether that means that it's weaker or whether that just means that it's going to be larger and it may eventuate a greater breakout. We'll just have to wait and see. The other things I've drawn here are, the first thing I've drawn is a upper trend line on the MACD, and it does seem to still be rising. And then I've drawn in arrows which correspond with roughly where we had the bottoming of the MACD, and you can see we're currently at a near crossing of the zero line. All of these previous ones nearly crossed or just barely crossed the zero line and then turned around and came back up. So we're at a similar stage here. You can see when we draw the line straight up from where these arrows point that they pretty much correspond to rally points. So if you would have bought here, for example, or here, you would pretty much have had a continuous gain from that point. So are we at a similar stage here? I think the odds are that we actually are, and that whatever is soon to come out of Europe is going to signal some very key weakness in the euro against gold. I think gold will probably begin to move up something like this in all currencies and probably break out into new highs. That's my best guess. Now over to the question of the night, and that comes from 2 Dalton 2, and he's asking about an exit plan. He says, "Hey John, glad to hear your health is on the mend. Hope you continue to get better, mate. Today's question from me is, what is your exit point in silver? Do you have a price target in mind, or are you waiting for a series of events and or circumstances to occur/change?" So very good question, a question that is asked frequently, that is debated very often on the message boards, the silver boards especially. And before I completely answer the question, I just wanted to play a brief segment. If you haven't heard the Office series that I produced, and this is just a brief segment from the Office series called Selling Your Silver Explained, and this will give you an idea of what I'm going to address. So I'll play a little bit of that here.
But you remember that the price of gold in Reichsmarks in January of 1923 was 10 billion per ounce?
Yes.
So if you had sold your gold in June of 1922 for a 1,000-fold gain, by January of 1923 you would have lost 99.9% of your money.
So you would have been completely wiped out.
Yes.
Even though you were correct in buying gold in the early 1920s.
Yes.
And even though you had made a gain of 100,000% in Reichsmarks. If you would have sold it then, you would have been completely wiped out.
Yes.
So if I don't want to sell my silver for any price denominated in dollars, then when do I sell it?
Well, since the...
So that's the issue, and I encourage you to watch the entire series. I'll put a link on there. But the idea is that there were many people in the early 20s who had 100 and 1,000-fold gains in gold and silver as well. And the ones that took their profits too early actually ended up getting wiped out within just 6 months' time. From that June to January of the next year, 6-7 months, they had a 99.9% loss. If they had taken their 100 and 1,000-fold gains and converted them into Reichsmarks, and they would have held the Reichsmarks and not converted them into something else, back into something else, then they would have taken a 99.9% loss. So I hope that clarifies my position on selling your silver. I really don't think you should be looking for a dollar price. And there's a couple of other reasons. I don't know what the tax implications would be. I know that, for example, when you short a stock, if you short a stock and you never cover, then you have no tax implications. That's my understanding. I don't know what the tax implications would be if you, quote-unquote, never sold your silver, at least in the currency that you bought it in. So that's another interesting perspective. But I definitely think that it is a tremendous risk if you are going into a hyperinflationary environment, which I think we're going to go into, to try to flip out of your precious metals and take a paper profit when it can go up so fast. The rate of inflation can go up so fast that those profits can be wiped out really quickly. So in the video series, there's some advice about flipping to real estate or other things, but probably the best advice I would give is just wait for the next currency to come about and wait for things to stabilize. And when things stabilize and all the bad currencies are washed out, you'll probably have a much more accurate valuation for silver. My guess is probably 5-to-1 to gold, and maybe even much more drastic than that. Bixweir's latest that he has out saying that it's going to be something like a 60-to-1 ratio, flip the other way, possibly even having silver being worth 50 times more than gold or something like that, just because of the incredible numbers with rumored hidden gold and all the missing silver. So I don't expect something that extreme, but I don't think that a 5 or 10-to-1 ratio would really be that extreme at all. So that would be the equivalent buying power if gold were fairly priced. Now we'll just use $2,000. That would be equivalent buying power of, say, roughly $400 an ounce silver right now. So that would be something that you would want to wait for. In my opinion, I certainly don't have any plans to sell anything in dollars unless barring some catastrophic emergency that forced me to do so. Now, the next thing I want to address is the amount of physical silver that's being purchased and how much of the investment dollars that actually represents. And this is one that I tend to beat the drum on a lot because I just think that people don't really wrap their minds around how outrageous the numbers really are as far as how small the number of people investing in physical silver is. So I use the American Silver Eagle as a proxy. Now, the American Silver Eagle is by far the most popular bullion silver coin in the world. It outstrips everything else in popularity. So I'm going to use it as an example. Now, what percentage does it represent of all the physical silver that's collected or delivered every year? I don't know, but it's probably a significant percentage. So I just wanted to get some of these numbers to give you a perspective. If you go to the Wikipedia article, at the very bottom you get the mintage numbers for the American Silver Eagle. It's been in existence since 1986, and it really exploded in popularity starting in about 2008. There's actually a section here called Effect of Recession on Availability, and it goes into some of the history of how they actually had to delay the coin, and it really went into shortage for a while there. But you can see the increase here, staggering numbers. 2006, 2007, about 10 million. It nearly hit that. You've got really about 8 years in a row here that are near 10 million. So 9, 9, 10, 8.5, 9, 9, 10, 9. So, but then you can see in 2008 we double to 20, and then we get 30 the next year, 35, and then 40. We don't know what this year is going to be. I suspect it's probably not going to be 45 or 50, but it might actually go down a little bit because we have had a little bit of a lull, but we'll see. We may get that near that 40 million mark again for 2012. Anyway, when you add them all together, you get this figure, and that's including the proofs. We're just going to round it off and call it 300 million ounces. That's how much Silver Eagles have been minted since the beginning of the program. My guesstimate about how many have actually been melted down, essentially zero. I can't imagine any reason why. The price has never risen high enough, and there's been no crossover with industrial demand. So my guess is that 99.9% of these are still out there. So that's 300 million. We'll just say current prices are $30, and that's going to give us $9 billion. $9 billion is the entire value of all the Silver Eagles mined in the history of the world, or minted, I'm sorry, in the history of the world. $9 billion is the figure. Now, just to put that figure in perspective, let's take a look at the recent Facebook IPO. As you know, Facebook IPO'd on Monday, May 21st. Actually, it was the Friday before that and started trading. You've got Monday here. So here's the Friday, and you can see the peak price was about 42 bucks. I think the initial offering price was around 38, something like that. You can see after hours we did a 9% drop today, and after hours we've got $30.50. So we've got a move of about, we'll just say about $12 from peak to where we are right now. And if you go to your key statistics, you can look and see what the float is of Facebook, and it's roughly 800 million. So just to use round figures, we're going to take 800 million times that 12. We're going to get about $9 or $10 billion. So these are comparative numbers. If you look at the market cap value, and it's now $84 billion for Facebook, the amount of money lost by the investors in Facebook since it IPO'd on Friday has been about equal to the value of all Silver Eagles mined in the, or minted in the history of the world. So that gives you a real perspective on where people are putting their money. Obviously, a very, very, very tiny amount of investor monies are going towards silver, physical silver, Silver Eagles, and we haven't even really, the investors haven't really even gotten their toe, even their little toe, in the door of this market. And of course, we know there just isn't room for very many investors to come in without the price skyrocketing. So, looking at the Euro Gold chart, and if we look at the Euro US dollar chart, you can see we're starting to form this ominous potential decline here, where we seem to have broken down. We're trying to get below this line here, and if we do, we may get kind of a washout decline, something like this in the euro. And of course, that's going to strengthen the dollar. But again, the dollar really isn't that strong either. You can see it's rallying in a tremendous bear market, and it is just starting to break through We'll see if there's any continuation to that. But clearly, the dollar is not nearly as strong as gold is relative to the euro, and we fully expect to see the euro gold price to break out to the upside in a violent manner looking at that chart. And obviously silver will follow, as silver always does, and we expect a rally there. And we'll talk to you next time.